This episode offers psychosocial education designed to inspire and motivate our listeners. The information provided does not constitute a therapeutic relationship nor a substitute for professional mental health care. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, call 911, go to your nearest emergency room, or for listeners in the United States, text 988 for the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Warning, this episode contains brain food that will lead to improved emotional and social intelligence. Thanks for tuning in to Harvesting Happiness today for a healthy serving of consciously prepared brain food. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen, your host. Since 2010, we've been broadcasting sound ideas for better well-being. Each week, we spotlight diverse thinkers and doers who are contemporary trendsetters and change agents, devoting their lives to creating a better world. I invite you to listen and change how you think about human happiness. Our award-winning content is fresh, optimistic, and purpose-driven media that promotes well-being from the inside out. This episode is part of the Good Citizens Election Season Survival Guide to Restoring Common Sense and Sanity in a Crazy World, produced in collaboration with renowned, fair-minded subject matter experts who provide strategies that enhance critical thinking, increase civic engagement, and foster healthy pleasure to boost personal well-being and relationship satisfaction. You can also discover more unique bonus content at More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness on Substack and Medium. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for joining me on today's show, where we are endorsing civic engagement, social responsibility, and media literacy with the League of Women Voters. My guest today is Kelly McFarland Stratman. Kelly is the Chief of Staff for the League of Women Voters of the United States, with over 25 years of nonprofit leadership experience driving innovation and transformative change. She has spearheaded significant initiatives throughout her 21-year tenure at the League's national office, including the Membership and Leadership Development Program and organization-wide culture change efforts focused on governance, strategic planning, and DEI. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And it's always good to hear that.
Yeah, the League of Women Voters plays such a vital role in championing what we need to pay attention to as women. And one thing that we want to do is make sure that people get out and vote, that they understand the pervasiveness of misinformation, disinformation, and nefarious media out there at the moment. And please talk a little bit about that.
Sure, I'm happy to. You know, this is a pervasive issue, as you said. This is the newest form of really trying to disenfranchise individuals in our system. And it's critical to the health of our democracy that we play an active role and an intentional role in trying to combat some of that. So the League, as you probably know, is a grassroots organization. We are nonpartisan. So we are not affiliated with any parties. We do not endorse or oppose candidates. We really just want individuals to get their voices heard and to be part of the process. And so we have affiliates all across the country, all 50 states, the district, and the Virgin Islands. And we exist at all levels of government. So at the community level, at the state level, and then, of course, at the federal level. And so we're all working overtime, especially these days, to make sure that citizens are able to get their voice in the process, to make sure that systems are working, that everyone is able to bring their ideas to the table, because that's how we get to a better democracy, is by making sure that all voices are heard. But as you noted, there are folks who don't see it that way.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And they are promoting disinformation. And I want to make that distinction there. Those are two different things. We talk about misinformation and disinformation, and sometimes we use them interchangeably, but they do have different meanings. And when we talk about disinformation, we are talking about information that is deliberately created and distributed with an intent to really deceive people, to harm the process. Misinformation, is just false or misleading information, and it's often unwittingly shared. I'm sure all of us remember when we were kids playing the game of telephone, right? And a story gets passed from one to the next. And when the story starts and where it ends, we're in a very different place. And so, while I know misinformation is often not spread with bad intent, it still has harm. And so it's something that we need to be conscious of as we go into this election season.
So when we talk about misinformation and disinformation, regardless of the miss or the dis,
Right.
bad information needs to be challenged. And when we hear stuff that doesn't feel right, we should be verifying our sources. We should be reality testing the concepts. Like, okay, like, does this really make sense? Does it really make sense that there's a pornography ring in a pizza shop? Like the child pornography ring, stuff like this, right? Like, how do we combat it when we don't even know that we're being manipulated by it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it requires all of us to really be engaged in this process, to really use our agency and our power to
Yeah.
really discern. We're the consumers of information. We're also sometimes the promoters of it, and really making sure that we are doing that well. And so we have a program at the League, we call it our Democracy Truth Project, and we have 5 steps that we encourage individuals to use as they consume information. So one is to research the source, right? Understand who is promoting this, who is sharing this information. Does the website sound familiar to you if it's something you're looking at online? Is it maybe a group that has political affiliations that might have you ask a few more questions, right? We encourage folks to look at the date. Sometimes something comes up when we're online and then you realize, oh my gosh, that
Yes.
information is from 2 years ago or something, right? And that's not relevant anymore. We encourage you to cross-check things. Is this story being picked up by news outlets in other places? Can you find multiple stories about the same thing? Well, then that's a conversation you want to engage in. We also encourage you to read past the headline. We know that, there's a lot of sort of salacious headlines out there to grab your attention, right? So look beyond that and really understand what's beneath that bit that they're trying to hook you with. And then really think about whether something is emotionally charged. It's easy to get wrapped up in the emotions and not think about the facts. But, how is someone sharing it? And does that really comport with what you think the story is about? And then if you do find that bad information, one thing we want to really encourage folks is not to repeat it.
Yeah.
I know it's often tempting. You get caught in this, right? You see
Yes.
something online, you want to comment, you want to correct the record, you want to set it straight. But every click, every like, every response on some of these really just elevates that bad content. So instead, we would encourage you to kind of flip that all around and put the good information out. Just post that. For every bad information you see, post the correct information, do it separately, and post it in a way that people can find. And if there's real issues, then we encourage you to report it, right, to the outlet that you're seeing it in.
That's really important what you just said. Do not respond to the disinformed post or the bad media post, but create your own positive one that sets the record straight or gives the correct facts regarding the statement. Yeah, that's really, really important.
You want to drive the conversation, right? So
Yeah.
we want to drive it with the correct information.
And this also taps into social responsibility, right? Like if you think about gossip and what gossip does, right? It is really a negative contagion. And we're wanting to limit these mind bugs that are spreading like influenza.
Right. Yeah, we want to be part of the positive, and I think
Yes.
most people, as I said, are not intentionally wanting to spread this information. The vast majority of individuals want to help others. They want to see others partake in the process. And so I think it is important to shift that conversation. I think it's important to remember, too, that there are different communities that are impacted differently by this, right? There are some communities that are a bigger target than others. And so we at the League, we partner with a lot of community organizations. One of our newest partnerships that we're really excited about is the Girl Scouts, right? Because they are the future. They are the future consumers, right? They are the future
Fantastic.
advocates and voters. And so we want to make sure that they're starting their journey out well, where they are able to ask those questions. They're able to discern what they're reading and really think about how they want to use their voice as they move forward.
And let's talk a little bit about the importance of using our voice and exercising our voting rights. Like one thing that is very exciting to me about this election season, although it's very important, very stressful, and all of that stuff is real, the idea that I get a seat at the table in this whole conversation. You get a seat at the table. When we talk about DEI and its true meaning, Every American is an employer in this situation. We are employing these people on a 4-year contract to run the government.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a healthy democracy requires a lot of diverse perspectives,
Yes.
right? The problems that we have in the US, like at any nation, right, they're complicated.
Yeah.
And they're nuanced. And we need the collective wisdom to help solve them. And so that's where everyone can come to the table. I think sometimes when we think about conflict, it has a bad connotation to it, but it's really quite healthy, right? It's quite necessary in our everyday lives, but certainly in tackling the larger problems that we have. And so, having that information, and one of the things that we always talk about at League is, to your point about quote unquote hiring elected officials, is that voters want to hear from the candidates. And so that's a lot of the work that we do as well. We have a one-stop shop for election information called vote411.org. And it has information, it answers some of those really foundational questions that we continue to hear from individuals. Where do I go to vote? How do I vote? What are the hours of my polling place? Do I need to bring an ID and so forth? But it also has a space for candidates to let you know where they stand on the issues. Because that's what all of us need to do as consumers. We need to understand what our values are. Hopefully, we're understanding what our neighbors and our communities' interests and needs are. And then we need to look at the candidates who are running for the various offices and see how our values align with their values that they're putting forth as candidates. And that's where things like community forums and candidate forums as well are so important for individuals to come together, whether it's in the virtual space or in the physical space, to really hear directly from the candidates themselves about what their solutions are to the complex problems that we have.
How is that data compiled at vote411.org?
So the information about voting processes and so forth, we gather as an institution from secretaries of state across the country, from boards of elections. But the candidate information is put in by the candidates themselves. We ask them to reply directly so that the voters can hear directly and unvarnished from them.
This is fantastic. So you're getting it from the horse's mouth. This is their truth, at least in the moment that they're posting on this platform. This is great. And again, it's vote411.org.
Vote411.org, yes.
Vote411.org. Moving on. Here we go. Let's talk about diversity, go back to diversity and diverse perspectives and why this is so important, especially when we are looking to govern a country as large and culturally diverse as our own.
Yeah, I mean, let me just say the League has been on a journey for ourselves with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And one of the tools that we use as a staff and as volunteer leaders is something what we call our DEI lens. And one of our first questions on that is, who is not at this table right now? Right? The problems are very challenging. They're very complex, and the solutions to them have to reflect that, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important to understand the different perspectives that each bring to the table to try to understand what the needs are of different communities. And that has not always been the case, we know, in this country, and it continues to be a challenge. Especially now, even the terms diversity, equity, inclusion, right? They are lightning rods in certain parts of the country right now. So really understanding how can we bring that collective wisdom to bear is what we're trying to do. And at the League, it's been a hallmark of what we have done. We, in addition to all of the voting rights work that we are probably most well known for, we also are an organization that holds public policy positions. And those positions come about through what we call member understanding and agreement. We ask our members from around the country to review materials, to really dig into these issues and have conversations and understand, where do we want to come out? What are our values as an organization? Where do we stand on these issues? And how do we want to advocate for solutions based on that?
Let's take a pause. And when we come back, we will continue the conversation with Kelly McFarland Stratman of the League of Women Voters. To learn more, go to all the social media sites. On X, it is LWV. On Instagram and Facebook, League of Women Voters. And the website is www.lwv.org. And you can connect with Kelly McFarland Stratman on LinkedIn. We'll be right back. This month is Menopause Awareness Month, which is something that's not talked about nearly as much as it should be, considering that millions of women reach menopause each year. We owe it to one another to open up the conversation. Truth be told, Menopause has affected many aspects of my being, from body temperature to mood and stress response to hair shedding thickness and quality. And that's why I love and use Nutrafol. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand trusted by over 1 million people. 51% of women who have gone through menopause have experienced hair thinning. That's why Nutrafol created their Women's Balance supplement, designed specifically for women 45 plus experiencing hair thinning that can be impacted by hormonal shifts, natural aging, and metabolism changes. Nutrafol Women's Balance is physician formulated with 100% drug-free ingredients that target hormonal shifts, natural aging, and metabolic changes for visibly thicker, fuller, stronger hair. I have been religiously using Nutrafol for more than 2 years. Thanks to Nutrafol, shedding has been significantly reduced, and my hair is now thicker and healthier. Plus, women like me who took Nutrafol's Women's Balance supplement also report a reduction in many of our less desirable symptoms. Since taking Nutrafol, I have experienced better sleep, improved stress response, and a significant reduction of those pesky menopause symptoms, including hot flashes. No matter your lifestyle or stage of life, from postpartum to menopause, Nutrafol is an excellent solution that targets the root causes of thinning and supports hair growth from within. Start loving your hair again. With Nutrafol, you'll see and feel thicker hair volume, fuller scalp coverage, and reduced shedding in 3 to 6 months. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com and enter the promo code HH. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code HH. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code HH. Now let's take that pause. We'll be right back. Harvesting Happiness is rooted in science. Our work facilitates applied positive psychology practices through media and consulting. We're committed to sound ideas for better well-being, leading to increased life satisfaction and a better world for everyone. We're not into pseudoscience or quick fixes. We're focused on common sense backed by rigorous research. Healthy critical thinking is the foundation for our discussions. We encourage you to challenge preconceptions and explore ideas with a curiously discerning mind. Collaboration with our guests is united by an inclusive vision to boost resilience, critical thinking, communication, and problem solving through civilized discourse and pleasurable relational engagement for everyone. Each day, we have the intellectual freedom to be happy or the liberty to be miserable, regardless of external circumstances. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please seek support, because good psychological health is vital to the achievement of a healthy and satisfying life. Visit harvestinghappiness.com for psychosocial and educational services that boost emotional and social intelligence. And we're back, continuing my conversation with Kelly McFarland Stratman of the League of Women Voters. We are endorsing civic engagement, social responsibility, and media literacy. Let's get back to it. Okay, Kelly, you and I, during the break, we were talking about how challenging it can be to introduce certain concepts that most of us accept as true, and ways of getting others to understand what we're talking about, specifically DEI. And I'm thinking about an example I gave in my own family, and we were talking about like the idea of an older person perhaps being daunted or not understanding what DEI really means and therefore maligning it. And I asked a question of some family elders who are in their 80s if they ever felt discriminated against because of their age. And the answer was yes. And I said, well, that kind of ties into DEI, because you don't feel that you're seen, heard, or understood. And the idea that you have no place at the table is representational of exactly what DEI means. And you can take it from there, but I'm pretty hot under the collar about this.
Yeah, so I mean, I think every person's DEI journey probably starts with some self-awareness and self-reflection. I think it has to come from inside of you. And then once you are able to start that journey and start to have some of those conversations, you can engage others. And then you can engage the larger community. And then that's what leads to these bigger changes in terms of policy and institutions, and quite honestly, traditions that have carried on that don't serve us as a country any longer. I think back to the founding of the League. We were founded out of the national women's suffrage movement. And, it was a radical thought in those days that women would have the right to vote. And so that's a big part of the reason that the League has leaned in on its education front as long as it has. It was, how do we allow people to use their voices in the best possible way, right? How do we empower them to have the information, to have the tools, and then to make sure that those voices are heard, right? So that we are creating both institutions and opportunities, but the most fundamental voice that we have is our vote, right? Making sure that that vote is cast, that it counts, and that people feel like they are part of the larger process for the health of our democracy.
Are there any resources at the League that someone could tap into that would teach about these ideas in a non-judgmental way? Like, in other words, I don't understand what DEI is. I don't understand why it's important. How can I learn more?
Yeah, we have some resources on our National League website, lwv.org. And again, we have been on this journey ourselves as individuals and as an organization. We had our 100th anniversary. We're 104 years old, so 100th anniversary in 2020. And that was an opportunity to reflect on our history, which was far from perfect. I want to acknowledge that, not all women got the right to vote in 1920. And that's an important piece of our history that we have to all own and embrace and make sure that we don't make mistakes like that in the future. But there are also several blog posts on our website to learn more about that history and the journey that we have been on as an organization. Again, I think this is also a place where a lot of our leagues at the community level are coming together in conversation as well. Our leagues are always looking to set up, they are known as trusted conveners in their communities. And that's in part because we are part of the communities. We are a grassroots organization. We our friends and family, our neighbors, are members of the organization along with us. We have built long-term connections and relationships with elected officials, with institutions in the community, like community colleges and universities and high schools. Quite honestly, we do a lot of work with high school students starting on their journey of voting, turning 18 and making sure they are registered and ready to participate fully in the process. And so because we have those relationships, people feel comfortable coming together, even when we have divergent opinions. Because again, that's really important to make sure that we're hearing a lot of different sides to the issue to make sure we're getting to the best solution that serves the whole community, not just a certain group of individuals.
Let's talk for a minute about respectful dialogue of opposing views and ways to engage with others that doesn't necessarily ensue a fight. And because it is possible to ask very simple questions like, tell me more, why you think that way, or can you explain? Like, you have the tools and resources to help us have these better conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of this is about coming together in a space, and again, it can be a virtual space or an in-person
Yes.
space. But we had to do a lot of pivoting, all of us as a nation during COVID, of course. But I think it's creating that space. I think part of this is the league's reputation. As I said, we are known through survey data we see as being a trusted institution, and that's in part because we are nonpartisan and because we've been part of our communities, as I said, for so long, for so many years. And so bringing together individuals, bringing together, in some cases, I remember stories of even legislators coming together with the league to try to figure out, how do we get to a solution? How do we actually move past this? And I think asking a lot of questions and being ready to listen is incredibly important. It's not always easy. I know
That's
that's
true.
just that's the human brain, right? We are always forming our answers while someone's speaking rather than listening to their full response, but really meeting people where they are and allowing them to feel comfortable. And again, letting them know that they have a seat at this table, whatever the table is, whether it's your kitchen table and you're talking with neighbors about an important issue, whether it's at a community center, or whether it's at the state legislature. How do we bring people together to have conversation?
Can you talk a little bit about the creating a voting plan and what we can expect on election day if we're choosing to cast our ballot on election day versus mailing it in, ways that we can be prepared to not be daunted or speed bumped, what our rights are. Like if we can't get into our polling space, can we go to another? Things like that. I think that would be really helpful for people to understand.
Yeah, so I think the first thing you said is the most critical piece of that is to really make a plan to vote. And so one of the first things, and people can start to do this now, is to confirm and check on your registration status, right? Especially before those deadlines come and go. And I will say this is a place, as we talk about mis and disinformation, just over the Labor Day weekend, we saw in 2 states false text messages going to people saying that their registration had been suspended. So don't fall for that. Go to the source. Go to your local board of elections. Go to your state board of elections and confirm your voter registration status and make any adjustments as you need to. Learn about what the opportunities are. If you can vote early in your state, maybe take advantage of that if you can, and then understand what your election day options are. What time of the polling place is open? Where is your polling place? They do occasionally shift, right? We have population changes. We have construction going on, maybe at a local school that you used to vote at or something. So make sure you know where you need to go that day and what those options are. And then know your rights when you are at the polling place. And then, of course, once you have your plan or once you've voted, post it out there. That's part of that positive messaging, right?
Yes.
We know that people respond most to information that's shared from people that they know. And so, post on your social media, your positive experience, what your election plan is, talk to your family, your friends, your neighbors, so that they know what they need to do to get ready for election day as well. And then if you do have challenges, know that there are election hotlines in place for individuals to follow up. There are opportunities in many states, but of course, this varies by locality to cast what they call a provisional ballot. So really understand, again, vote411.org is going to be your best bet for information. And if there's any last minute changes, which we saw a lot of those in 2020 because of the pandemic, we continually are updating Vote 411 right up until the minute the polls close.
So at vote411.org, you can get the election hotline numbers for each state or each district, as well as how to go about getting a provisional ballot if you find yourself speed bumped in some way.
We'll offer you, I don't want to say necessarily a provisional ballot, but we will offer you the alternatives that are available to you in your locality. Yes.
Got it. This is really important. This is really helpful. But the most important thing, if you want to win the lottery, you got to buy the ticket. So first register to vote. That's the most important thing here, is to register, make your plan, and then put that plan into action and be heard.
Absolutely. And for those of you who want that piece of information that you can hold in your pocket, it's 866-OUR-VOTE is the election hotline. That's in English. It's also available in other languages. Again, Vote 411 will tell you what those are in other languages. But if you need help on election day, that's going to be the critical number to know, 866-OUR-VOTE.
Fantastic. Please come back again. There's so much more to this conversation, and I know our time is limited today, but I feel like we've given the cliff notes, like how to get out there and be civic-minded, socially responsible, et cetera, et cetera. To learn more about the League of Women Voters, please go to www.lwv.org, on X at LWV, on Instagram and Facebook at League of Women Voters, and on LinkedIn, you can find Kelly McFarland Stratman over there. Kelly, thank you so much. Please come back again.
Thank you so much. Great to talk with you.
Thanks for joining us today on Harvesting Happiness. This is Lisa Cypers Kamen on behalf of my guest, Kelly McFarland Stratman of the League of Women Voters, wishing you kind thoughts, kinder words, and the kindest of actions. Until next time, remember, happiness is an inside job. Happiness is your inside job. Please go out and rock your day. Remember to be kind to one another. And don't forget to register and vote. Want to explore more sound ideas for better well-being? You can listen to part 2 of this conversation and the Good Citizens Election Season Survival Guide to Restoring Common Sense and Sanity in a Crazy World at More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness on Substack and Medium. Subscribe, listen, and share hundreds of downloadable episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with and follow us on most social media channels. To learn more about lifestyle management and mental fitness consulting services, please visit harvestinghappiness.com. Harvesting Happiness and More Mental Fitness are produced by Lisa Cypers Kamen, Andrea Mengele, Robin Boyd, Andrea Daly, and the excellent team at Podfly Productions, including Eric Begay, Kimberly Beck, and Alec Guess, in collaboration with TogiNet Radio, KBUU, RadioMalibu.net, and is available on PRX, the Public Radio Exchange.